Some basic troubleshooting with Kesa Gatame. Now, even though it's the most basic fundamental pin that we teach students and that you will learn as a judo player, there's a lot of little mistakes that we'll be making in our judo journey, which is okay. First and foremost, we want to make sure there is absolutely zero space between me and my partner. So that's why when we start, I want to say I'm 90 degrees, but obviously I'm probably going to be a little bit off 90 because a little bit more obtuse because I want to put some pressure on my partner. But in reality, my hips are nice and tight in my partner's armpit. So if you move his arm up, I'm as close as I can on my partner. There's pressure there. A lot of the times, we don't want to be out here where I can actually fall back this way, because obviously, look at all that space now. So if I try to pin my partner with Kesa Gatame here, there's so much more space and room for my partner to move around, make a space, and ultimately escape the pin. So first and foremost, in terms of things to look out for, is making sure that we are nice and snug in my partner's armpit. Making sure that, again, I almost have his tricep on my thigh. That's how we know we're nice and tight. Once we're there, you're gonna find your sweet spot of where you want your weight to be, but ultimately, like we mentioned, we can't have them able to do a sit-up. And again, this all comes down to spacing and making sure there is not enough space. There's enough space for us to operate and function, not enough space for them to operate and function. So again, if my hips are low and my partner can do a sit-up, granted my partner is probably stronger than your average bear, obviously I'm not doing the pin properly. So you want to make sure that when you're teaching and you want to kind of spot check everyone, your own child or your own students, that you can do the sit-up test. So even if I'm just holding here with very minimal resistance, I'm just kind of hanging out, I'm not flexing, there is a little tension on my partner's arm, my partner goes to do the sit-up test, it shouldn't be easy for them. Now obviously when I apply some pressure and he does the sit-up test, he can't go anywhere. So we want to make sure, for point number 2, that not only are our hips nice and tight in their armpit, but we're applying pressure on their arm, pulling it nice across the body. And again, there's a little bit of torque, right? I'm facing this way. You watch my chest on my nose line, and as I pull the arm, I'm just a little bit off this way, because now there's tension. Pins in judo are not just, again, we're not just taking pictures like this. If this was a picture, I don't need to torque them or move them, but this is real life judo, so I want to make sure there is pressure there. My partner should be uncomfortable. They should feel as if I'm holding them down. So, points 1 and 2, ultimately this boils down to no space. If there's space, there's an escape. You're gonna be hearing that saying a lot throughout this. The next thing, head that way. With our legs, we wanna make sure that we have a nice wide base. We don't want our feet crossed this way because we actually have no stability this way, and my hips naturally are gonna go to the ground this way. So if my partner does an inside turn and wants to do some sort of an escape, my body's natural reaction is to go this way. So that's why we spread our legs here, because when my partner turns into me, I have a good, strong, stable area. Now with this said though, there's something we wanna be mindful of is not keeping this back leg so far stretchy back for those really flexible students, because you're asking just to have your legs figure forward, which we'll get into a little bit later, but they need to be mindful. It's not necessarily a troubleshooting point, but it's being mindful of this back foot here. So when I'm here doing my pins, I don't want it super wide where, again, my base is great, but ultimately I'm asking for my leg to get leg scissored, right? But it's obviously not so shallow where I don't have a base either. You want to have your students find that sweet spot, and your kids find that sweet spot, so they have a nice strong base without sacrificing or risk losing the pin with Kesa Gatame here. So the last point, or the next point rather, is pressure on the upper body when we wrap our arm around their head. So that way. So when we're here, we wanna, now my partner knows exactly what to do, but we want this arm to go all the way under. My partner naturally just picks his head up because he doesn't want to get any hands in the face or anything like that, which we can always appreciate, but we want to make sure that if our students don't always have a cooperative partner, or if our kids, are working with someone who's just really kind of still new, be a good partner, pick up your melon and let them hook the whole thing. And that's really the key point there, is hook the whole head. Don't just get your fingers in there. You need to have a whole head, so if you were to grab your wrist, you can almost just squeeze their heads here. Now, obviously, when we're doing Kesa Gatame or we're doing judo, we don't just want to hold the head because this isn't that strong, right? We want to make sure we have the arm. The key point to Kesa Gatame is this scarf hold here. So what's creating the scarf? It's going to be a little bit of this arm, a little bit of that arm, big scarf, okay? But we want to make sure that, again, there's tension squeezing the head as I'm pulling and rotating and torquing on that arm. There has to be pressure here. My shoulder is really in my partner's face, kind of driving into him a little bit. So whenever my partner tries to do an escape, he's uncomfortable. If my partner is doing an escape and can move freely and is not making any grunting sounds or anything like that, my pin is really, really not strong enough. So you want to make sure that when they're here, there's tension and there's pressure. But now, not so much where you're flexing so hard and you're just like you're stiff. Because when you're stiff in judo, you're just asking to get countered, you're asking to get, really it's not gonna work out well for you. You gotta be strong, but you also have to be loose. So if you notice, even though I'm squeezing really hard here, I can still talk at a normal volume. So if my partner's trying to escape hard, I can still speak comfortably, but I have my partner down tightly. It's when I'm squeezing like I'm flexing and I'm too tense and I can't, and obviously if I can't talk at the right volume, my partner tries to escape. That's when I'm exerting too much effort. Now obviously there's a time to exert too much effort and a time not to, but generally you should have that pin so technically correct in terms of the small details where you can still squeeze hard without exerting so much effort. And that's the key of judo, right? Minimum effort, maximum efficiency.